Once upon a time, not too long ago, in an age more innocent than our own, an idea was born in Paris that was to transform and inspire British children's television for decades. And it began in the cafes of Paris and migrated across the Channel to become as British as fish and chips. And it started, like all the best stories, with a little bit of magic.
Les manèges enchantés.
Lovely day, said Florence. Beautiful, said Mr. Rusty.
This is the tale of a children's series that became a cultural phenomenon.
I think it was the first of its kind.
It is about a unique and unlikely entertainment cordial. And an English eccentric who gave voice to a cast of unforgettable characters.
Hello, hello, said Brian. Hello, said Ermentrude.
He must have been completely crazy.
Set against a backdrop of money and big business.
It was the beginning of the power of television.
To tell that story, we must go back to Paris in the early 60s, to a group of people working for La Comète. La Comète was a busy advertising agency employing an international team of young artists. Several of the staff were British, including Ronald Searle, who animated this advert, and a young artist called Ivor Wood, who did the background.
La Comète was, as far as I was concerned, was a marvellous place because I did believe I was back in art school. They were absolutely crazy lot, but they did some very hard work. We had stints in sometimes periods in which we were doing 24 hours without a stop.
Advertising was a growth industry and companies were willing to pay good money for new and exciting ways to sell their products. This advert for French handkerchiefs used a new innovation called stop frame animation to demonstrate the many uses of a mouchoir, and it was working with this new style of animating that inspired another La Comète employee called Serge Dano to have a brainwave.
Serge Dano came into the company Comète from another big company called Cinéaste Associé, and one day, of course, naturally got talking. And he said, I find a way of doing animation a little bit quicker and what have you, which suits television.
Dano's idea was for a children's series about a roundabout operator, some children and a magic garden, which he thought he could sell to French television. His La Comète colleagues thought he was mad. But Ivor, his wife, Josiane, and a few other friends said they would try and help and get it off the ground.
We had meetings, and Josiane, my wife, was brought into this because she helped on a lot of things.
I think everybody was thrashing out ideas. What about that? What about that? Can we do some songs?
And there was round table discussions. And that's where ideas came out. And that's when we started doing a few tests and a bit of background to it and so forth. But it was on the shoestring.
The group worked together at night and on weekends, and gradually Dano's idea took shape. The first story told of how an old roundabout operator called Le Père Pivouin was sad because children could not come to ride on his roundabout anymore. A magical creature comes into his life who says he can use enchantment to bring the children back. This bizarre creation was made on the spur of the moment.
Dano, who'd done a lot of model work for live action, and he'd made some very, very big Ps. And he had one of these lying about. And I said, well, let's make a head with this. And I made the ZBD there and then by putting him in the nose and the moustache and everything else. And it was quite quickly done. I think it was done in a day. I think it was either inspiration on the moment or forget it.
And so Zebedee, the pea on a spring, became the device by which the children got in and out of the garden of earthly delights.
I must have a bizarre mind, that's all I can say.
Dano had already developed the humans that were in the garden, but Ivor thought they needed some animals.
For instance, coming to Dougal, which was, we can't have children without an animal. What on earth are we going to do? Cat, no, we can't put a cat because that doesn't go around with the children. So we'll have a dog. Oh my, we'll have to get a dog. Which dog? What sort of dog? Etc., etc. And this was bandied about. And to tell you the truth, there's even somebody who helped me at the Comet who said, oh, I saw a dog. And he did a little sketch, and I thought, oh my God, not bad at all. And little by little, Dougal was created.
Dougal, or Poulux, as he was known in France, was made without legs, simply because 4 legs would take too long to animate. And this legless, long-haired lover of sugar soon took over the show.
Now, Dougal was created, but he was said, what on earth are we going to do with Dougal? A dog doesn't talk. What's he going to do? Oh, he'll walk in and now and again, go woof woof and walk out again. But he'll be there. So what? Well, there, it just goes to show you, because even as far as we were concerned, he took over. Because everybody liked Dougal. And even as far as the gentleman doing the voice of the French version, when we were doing the recording, he suddenly turned around and said, well, why can't the dog say something? Well, you can't, that dog doesn't. I'll tell you what, look, there's Ivor here. He's English. Let's give him an English accent. As far as the French were concerned, Dougal, from there on, had an English accent.
Et je suis prêt.
The stories were basic, the animation was clunky, but the first episodes of Le Ménage Enchanté were an instant hit. On the back of the success of the first series in France, the TV station ORTF brought in a young marketing man called Jean-Michel Biard to try and drum up interest in merchandise for the series. It proved a very easy job.
A week after I came to the French television, I had already 20 inquiries. I didn't know what all this, all these people writing to make toys and books and apparel and whatever. And so, hey, and after 1 month, it was already something like 10 contracts signed.
ORTF realised the series could be sold abroad with each country dubbing the puppets in their own language. To this end, they approached the biggest TV station in Europe.
So the head of the children's program of the French television contacted this person in the UK, Miss Peggy Miller, and said that, why don't you buy that? And they viewed, and the reply was, no, we think it's too complicated for dubbing, we're not going to do it. Thank you very much. Very polite. A few months or after, she changed her mind, but it was the first reaction.
Stand by to run titles. 9, 8, 7.
In 1964, the BBC Children's Department was about to enter a golden age.
Here's a house. Here's a door.
Jackanory, Jackanory.
These new programmes were the work of the new head of children's programming, Doreen Stevens, and her team, one of whom was Joy Whitby.
I was at the beginning of children's television as it became after one sort of era ended and another began, mainly with the beginning of BBC Two. I joined at that time, and that was a great start in many directions, but in fact the very first programme on it was a children's programme called Play School, which I started.
Hello.
Hello.
Having established innovative live programmes like Jackanory and Play School, Joy and Doreen were open to more new ideas. When La Manage Enchantée was again offered to the BBC, they saw its appeal as a new kind of puppet series.
It had the essential ingredients, I suppose, of a boy and a girl, and a dog, and something magic that went bzing, and a magic garden. Those are very classic magic ingredients that appeal to people at all ages, really. And I think that's what charmed visually, because also it had a very new look.
At this point, puppets had been animated by either strings or hands in gloves. Stop-frame animation took away all visible means of support, allowing the viewer to believe just that little bit more. But Joy still had to overcome the problem of how to turn a noisy French soundtrack into one more suited to British sensibilities.
Et maintenant, voulez-vous voir ce que Margot a vu?
Fortunately, Joy was working with a young actor and presenter who she thought might be perfect for the job.
I'd been working with and was very friendly with Eric Thompson and his wife Phillida Law, and I had a great admiration for Eric's intelligence and his charm.
Eric was a theatre actor and director whose mellifluous voice and apparent lack of self-consciousness made him a perfect children's presenter.
For little Ted. Now, first of all, I shall need a piece of string, like that, and a knitting needle.
Eric was given a few French versions of the programme and asked to see what he could do with them.
Well, Thompson, I never called him Eric, by the way, because I think that is a deplorable name. Of course, Thompson couldn't speak French, was a typical Englishman, thought the French were frightful. It was a joke, really. He wouldn't take me to a French restaurant.
And he didn't try to translate it. He worked from the pictures and made up his own stories.
So he holed himself up in this tiny cottage in Scotland and wrote this very calm, very straight kind of, I don't know how to say it, but a sort of, there were no voices to it really. With all, you know, he said, Dougal said, and he said to me, are there too many of that? I said, no, I think that's the right. It's rather lovely. It's like being read to when you're a child. So he stuck with it and sent it to Joy Whitby, who was the woman who said, yeah, I'd go for that.
This is Mr. Rusty. He used to be a happy man, but now he's sad. There's no magic in life anymore, he said. You see, once upon a time, when he played his barrel organ with the birds on top, all the children used to come and ride on his roundabout. But now they didn't come anymore. No magic, said Mr. Rusty to the horse. Very likely, said the horse, who was secretly quite pleased with the rest he was having.
Eric Thompson got the job. His calm, amusing style of narration seemed to work perfectly.
He sat at a really funny old machine. It was quite solid like that in his study with two big reel-to-reel film spools on it, and it was quite basic mechanics. It just was forward stop, back stop. And he'd sit there with his A4 pad and he'd watch the screen, which was in the middle of these two spools, and he'd write the story, and occasionally I'd be a little assistant, and he'd go forward and I go, and he'd go stop, and I go, and he'd go back, and I'd take that very seriously for about 5 minutes.
And he'd wind it back and forth with his feet while he wrote. And on many occasions the picture was so small he didn't know what the prop was that was delivered to Dougal's house or anything. So he'd get it severely wrong. It's quite funny.
Voyons ça un peu pour le père Pivoine. Eh oui, c'est bien pour moi. Voyons, oh tiens, mais il y a quelque chose écrit derrière. Cher père Pivoine, je t'aime.
The writing was very bad, but it was definitely addressed to Mr. Rusty. And there's only one thing to do with a parcel that's addressed to you, and that is, open it. carefully, because you never know what might be inside. Do you?
And so the style was born, a style that Eric Thompson honed to perfection, as each of his different characters underwent the transformation from French to British.
This is a quintessentially English sensibility. Now, isn't this bizarre? Because these are French puppets being animated by a French director, and yet we're unconscious of that, because what we're conscious of is Eric Thompson bringing the whole thing into this British style of humour.
This, said Dougal, is the wine-making tub. Oh. Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh. Oh, it's like that, is it? All right. There we go, then. Get on, then, squeaky breeks.
I think there were kind of jokes that went over the head of kids because they didn't realise the significance of them, but they had this built-in nostalgia which appealed to the adults. So when Dougal whizzes in and says, "I've arrived, and to prove it I'm here," adults of a certain age would think, "Ah, yes, I know where that comes from." And that's what Tommy Hanley used to say in It, Mars.
Florence arrived. "Oh, you've arrived," said Dougal, "and to prove it, you're here."
Thompson created a very British cast of characters drawn from contemporary culture. Dougal is a combination of a dour Scot, hence the name, and one of the foremost comedians of the time.
How do I look? Said Dougal. Chic? Elegant? That's what I was promised.
Who is Dougal but Tony Hancock? There's that type of character, the character that we associate with Tony Hancock, the pompous, the self-important, the opinionated, the person who uses grandiloquent phrases when he doesn't really understand what he's saying.
Does Magna Carta mean nothing to you? Did she die in vain?
But Eric kind of subsumed that and made it into something reminiscent of Tony Hancock, but a bit different, a bit more personal.
And somebody once said that Dougal was Alf Garnett's moustache out for a walk, which I think is brilliant.
What's your name? Said Dougal. Brian, said the snail. Brian? Said Dougal. Snails aren't called Brian. Snails are mollusks. Aren't you funny? Said the snail.
Brian was him, I think. Cheerful and optimistic and very irritating.
"Hey," said Brian, "come quickly." Florence went. "Look," said Brian, "I just asked him if he'd take a cheque and he fainted." "Sugar," said Florence.
Ah, Florence. Well, what is Florence? I think Florence is a bit like Christopher Robin in the Winnie the Pooh stories. You know, she's this pole of normalcy. She is the centre around which this whirl of strange, eccentric characters carry out their adventures. She is the person that roots it. She is us, in a way.
"I don't know what's going on," said Florence. "Who does?" said Dougal.
The first programme, which the BBC had decided to call The Magic Roundabout, went on air just before the news on the 18th of October, 1965.
And Zebedee seemed to know all about Mr. Rusty's troubles, about the roundabout, and no children, and no magic, and all that. And he told Mr. Rusty he would make everything all right again. And he did. As you will see tomorrow.
The real success came, in a sense, from the scheduling, because Doreen had a lot of respect from above in the planning and the controllers, and it was her idea to strip it across the week. This hadn't been done before. So you had a chance of cottoning on to it by watching every night, and it becomes addictive. it's a great mistake not to exploit people's appetite for habit.
The first episodes followed a storyline, ending each day with a cliffhanger, guaranteed to hook young minds.
Tell them whoever catches the balloon will get a special surprise, said Zebedee. Yes, whoever catches the balloon, said Mr. Rusty, will get a special surprise. And who caught it, and what the surprise was, we shall see. Tomorrow.
The crucial time slot was at the insistence of the French, who had seen the merit of broadcasting the programme in front of the evening news.
Why did that work? I presume it worked because we had both children and parents at the same time. And it's a nice combination because then it became a family program. You know, that was the situation.
So I'd be rushing about doing whatever it was, and Gran and the kids would be watching. I can't remember whether Dad did or whether he was available. Yes, he would, because he'd want to watch the news, the 6 o'clock news.
Hello, Dougal, said Florence. Oh, I'm so excited. Me, a film star. Hello, Brian. I am a camera, said Brian.
I don't think anyone, Eric or Doreen, realised that it would have such a huge appeal. But it was pretty quick to make its appeal, and it was watched in pubs and by judges, and people were delighted to find something that had a universal appeal.
The BBC had a hit on its hands, but even they didn't realise how big a hit until they moved the series to an earlier time. Suddenly, the children's opinion vehicle Junior Points of View was deluged with letters from angry grown-ups.
I hope that at the age of 20 I am not too old to write to your programme. I am a dedicated Dougal fan, and I may probably never see him again, as I don't get home from work until 5:15. What about the workers?
May I, as a dad, express my grief? I used to cancel business appointments in order to be home for this programme. We, that is my 16-month-old daughter and I, found the programme jolly good. 3 uncheers for the man who rearranged the programmes. We are crossing him off our list for Christmas cards.
Pay freeze, £50 travel allowance, high taxes, and now you've altered the time of the magic roundabout. What else are we children over 30 going to be deprived of?
What about the millions of older children who only finish work at around 5 o'clock and rush home from their offices and factories? This programme is just as popular with adults, most of whom don't get home until 5:30. Yours, in anticipation, 26 office clerks.
We beg you to reconsider and return the magic roundabout to its original time. Yours faithfully, 100 angry draftsmen. Average age, 23.
A few weeks later, Junior Points of View launched a magic roundabout arts competition. Within a fortnight, 100,000 entries arrived in the post, prompting the arts programme Late Night Lineup to take note.
Those are some of the 100,000 entries for the Magic Roundabout competition, which ended early in December, and the results were announced in Junior Points of View last week. Children were invited to send in drawings, models, paintings, anything in fact that reminded them of the characters in the Magic Roundabout.
Late Night Lineup invited Serge Danot over from France to discuss the amazing success of his series. Serge brought along his colleague and translator, Jean-Michel Biard, who says neither of them realised it was an arts programme.
I thought it was something like news, you know, for us. Honestly, we had no idea. Nobody told us, you know.
Can I ask you how popular this programme is in France?
Certainly, it has been a tremendous success. About 2 years, I'm sorry, I'm speaking very bad English, but 2 years ago it was the best success in France for children program, I mean. And we made 250 different 5 minutes.
Was it immediately successful? I mean, how long did it run before it gathered strength?
Est-ce que ça a démarré tout de suite, le succès?
Oui, tout de suite.
All of a sudden, within a couple of weeks, very quickly.
With which age groups now is it most popular?
Quel groupe d'âge à peu près?
Oh mon Dieu, de 7 à 77
From
ans.
7 to 77.
Did you deliberately create it to appeal to adults?
Est-ce que tu as créé ça pour les adultes ou au contraire
Eh bien, j'ai voulu faire un programme pour les enfants et un programme qui n'ennuyait pas les parents, tout simplement.
He wanted to make a program for children, but at the same time for grown-ups too.
But did its popularity with adults, it's tremendously popular with adults over
Yes.
here, did that surprise you?
Yes, it is. Yes, we have been very surprised in a way in France and in all the countries where the program is telecast now. It's the same thing. It's
In
very
which other
curious.
countries is it shown?
Oh, it's in Germany, in Portugal, in Canada, in Belgium, Switzerland. Well, it's Spain, Italy, and now we're going to go to the United States.
Now, each country has its own names for the characters, doesn't
That's right.
it?
Yes.
Now, the French name, what are the French names?
Alors les noms français.
Pollux.
Pollux for Dougal.
For Dougal. Margot.
For Florence.
Florence. Zébulon.
For Zebedee.
Pour Zébédée. Le père Pivoine.
For Mr. Rusty.
Et je crois que ce sont les seuls que les téléspectateurs ont vus.
And Ambroise.
Ambroise, c'est l'escargot.
For Brian.
For Brian.
Yes. Can I tell you something about the French reaction about the Dougal name? Je raconte l'histoire, tu sais, de Dougal. We all thought that when you spoke of Dougal, we were very afraid about our ministry, our foreign ministry, and we thought it was Mr. de Gaulle, the president, you know, and yes, and, we were afraid about that, but it's all right.
Of course, it wasn't only adults who watched the Magic Roundabout. Children enjoyed it too, and were glued to their televisions at the very mention of its name.
One of my favourite television programmes is the Magic Roundabout, and I expect you remember when I made this Dougal a little while ago. I made him by using a plastic detergent bottle for his body and covering it with wool for the hair. And then a little later on, I made a different Dougal, this time one that you could eat, using a Swiss roll for his body. But of course there are other important characters in the Magic Roundabout stories, and one of them is Brian, the Magic Roundabout snail. There's Zebedee, and there's Florence as well. And another Dougal I've got here is, this time, a glove puppet.
The original puppets had been made in haste from anything that was to hand, so reproductions were easily made with materials available in the average household.
It was part of the culture of the times. It was post-war, really, relatively. Children didn't have the disposable income that they have today. But what we did have was this great mass of stuff. We had loo rolls, we had bits of fur, we had cotton reels, we had all the things in the mother's work basket that you could utilise. These were things that were around the house. It wasn't beyond the bounds of possibility that you could get together the bits and pieces that Valerie said you needed. A ping pong ball for Dougal's head, a bit of fur to make the coat for Dougal. You could find these things and you could have a go at doing it.
And on the bottom here, a piece of card. And this stops the body from rolling over. It holds it nice and firmly in place. This bends up like that. And on the inside of the head here, you'll see there's a little hole. And put some glue round here, the inside of the neck, like that. That pushes up into there, and the felt, of course, will stick onto the glue on the inside, and there you've got the body. And a little piece of felt ties round here. This is about 1/2 inch wide and about 6 inches long. And this is a very good way of covering up the neck. And of course it makes a scarf, and you can just fringe the ends. And finally, the shell on the back is done with an ordinary ball like this. But I've actually cut out a tiny little hole from the bottom, and I'm going to stick that on the bottom. But first I'm just going to draw a squirrely design like that, right the way around there, and that gives you the effect of the shell. And a little bit of glue onto the bottom, like that. That sticks on the back there, and then you'll probably find you have to leave that somewhere very nice and firmly to dry until, of course, you've got it nice and firmly stuck on that one. And there you've got another character to add to your Magic Roundabout characters. There's Florence and there's Dougal. and I think you might have great fun making that.
We did, and viewers responded by sending yet more examples of homemade art through the post.
This Dougall's got a cardboard face, and his fur is as hard as stone. But the interesting thing about this Dougal is that it's actually a lump of coral. It's about the largest lump of coral that I think I've ever seen.
These characters here from the Magic Roundabout, believe it or not, have all been crocheted. They stand about 5 inches tall, and the strange tale behind them is that they've all been crocheted by a man, Mr. Mingay from Bedford. Mr. Mingay's been crocheting now for nigh on 20 years, but it was only when he began to crochet a cushion that he thought about doing the characters for the Magic Roundabout. He'd just started the centre of the cushion when on the television came the Magic Roundabout. So I really suppose it really began with Brian, because the centre of his cushion looked very much like the shell on the back of Brian's back.
Inadvertently, and very much against the BBC ethos, they were fueling demand for Magic Roundabout merchandise. The series was now getting 8 million viewers a night, and manufacturers were falling over themselves to license the characters to sell everything, from books to blancmange.
It was the beginning of the power of television. I guess that it came from the kids themselves. They asked their parents asked the manufacturer contacting us. That's the way.
By the late 60s, merchandising to children was booming. Everyone was cashing in on the demand for spin-offs, and the biggest seller of all was the Magic Roundabout.
We weren't very much encouraged to think in terms of merchandising. It was a new art form in a sense, and it was created as Play School and Jackanory and all these animations gripped. Then BBC Enterprises, or whatever it was called in those days, started to realise that there was merchandising potential, and Magic Roundabout was always the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that they were all chasing. For a long time, there was nothing like the Magic Roundabout for scooping up that enormous appetite parents have for giving children spin-offs, and for children to be seduced by advertisements into buying spin-offs.
I remember buying, and I was rather too old to buy these things, so I was in that slightly ambivalent stage of thinking, you know, dare I go into a toy shop to buy a dinky car which actually has Dougal and Dylan in it, and Brian, I think, in the boot at the back. But there were these things everywhere, and they appealed to everybody, so yes, in the end I did go in and buy it.
The vivid reds and pinks and blues of the toys and gifts reflected the true hues of the Magic Roundabout, which the French had been filming in colour since the second series. It took until 1970, however, for the BBC to finally catch up. New characters were introduced to supplement the French cast, but soon became part of Thompson's parade of familiar eccentrics.
Switch it off, said Ermintrude. What? Before it's finished its cycle?
But Ermintrude, you know, hello darlings, oh dear heart, you know, this wonderful camp cow. I mean, how else can you describe her?
I'm a film star, film star. Second verse, said Dylan. Slow movement.
Dylan the Rabbit was named after Bob Dylan, which gave rise to the most enduring myth about the series, that everyone was on drugs.
Yes, that is the modern myth, because we met all the university students who said, oh yes, early drug culture. Absolutely not. Isn't it interesting how we put our own spin on things?
That's a relief, panted Dougal, getting on with his cake.
I don't know whether anybody's ever said this to you about the Magic Roundabout, and I may be alone in saying it, but I think it was strangely subversive.
Oh, really? Thought Dougal. If it's not one thing, it's another.
I will not be put in an antique shop. I was at Waterloo, I'll have you know.
You'll be at St Pancras if you don't watch it, mate.
Now, what I think it was doing was setting up this really quite bizarre world filled with really rather strange characters and telling you that it was all right for all of those characters to coexist.
Zebedee arrived. Late as usual, said Florence. You'll make me cry, said Zebedee. No, I won't, said Florence.
And I think that was a very liberal kind of idea, maybe at a time when people's ideas were becoming politically rather more liberal. But I latched onto that as a young man, particularly as a young man searching for my own sexual identity. And I know other people did too, that it gave you a sense of all of these characters with all of their frailties and quirks openly displayed, not hidden, not concealed. They were all there, and nobody apologising for being what they were. And I found that deeply reassuring in a world in which I felt actually, as a young man, very, very unsecure.
What's that sheep doing there? Oh, it's me.
I think Thompson was subversive. I think you think you've got somebody straight, don't you? Not necessarily in marriage, just in life. You think you've got them pigeonholed and sorted, and then they suddenly do something so way out that takes you by surprise, which is nice, isn't it? Somebody I knew called him a controversial character.
One of the things I think that Magic Roundabout really did achieve as a children's programme, you know, a lot to do with Eric's, Eric Thompson's voiceover, was that it put in little signals and little innuendos and things that you could go with or you didn't.
Perhaps you prefer my Tosca, said Brian. No, we wouldn't, said Dougal.
The funny thing is, you can be much more round the corner with jokes with children. You can say something that's very tongue-in-cheek or very camp to a child and it will get the joke. A listening adult may not. I don't know why. I think adults are more anxious.
In 3 short years, the Magic Roundabout had gone from being an idea to an international phenomenon. Money poured in from merchandising and foreign sales, while Dano copyrighted the series in his name. Many of the original team became disenchanted, and for Ivor Wood, certainly the magic had gone. When Dano moved his animation studios from Paris to the French countryside, Ivor decided he'd had enough.
I decided no. Because I thought this was getting myself into too much of a one-way street. I'd be stuck out there. What happened is suddenly he decided to give the whole thing up or sell it out or whatever. You've established yourself out in the countryside. Very nice, thank you. But I didn't think that this was the time to do that, as far as I was concerned.
Mr. Rusty was, as usual, a bit worried. No one ever seems to ride on the roundabout anymore, he said. Well, I will, said Florence.
I think the Magic Roundabout was not only of its time, but actually led to other things. It was significant because it inspired a series of programmes that were, in their own way, just as magical and just as beautifully created, sometimes better made. I think of the Herbs, for example, and Parsley the Lion, as being created with, in some senses, a far heightened degree of artistry than actually went into the Magic Roundabout.
Here comes Parsley. I wonder if he's noticed anything strange about the garden.
I'm a very friendly lion called Parsley. I am always very glad to see you wave.
The Herbs was written by Michael Bond, and his magic garden was brought to life by none other than Ivor Wood.
You do feel something different, Parsley. And what on earth was that?
If you look at all Ivor's work, I mean, it's a sort of, I would say, a kindness within the stories or the way he approaches things. There's nothing violent about it at all. And I think this is a sort of trademark.
From the Herbs, Ivor went from strength to strength. Next, he made the classic Paddington Bear, continuing the collaboration with Michael Bond.
Mr. and Mrs. Brown first met Paddington on a railway station, which was how he came to have such an unusual name for a bear.
Paddington was hugely successful and established Ivor as one of Britain's leading animators.
I'm a stowaway.
I think Ivor's contribution is extremely important because if you look at a series like Paddington, for example, which is probably the nearest thing to the Magic Roundabout to really succeed across a wide spectrum of viewers, then you see the same kind of magic. You see the magic in the animation. The way the characters move in Ivor's films there's a simplicity, but there's also a great subtlety, because every animator is an actor. That's what they're doing. They're acting through this puppet. They're acting through it if it's drawn on a piece of paper, but they're taking the puppet and they're manipulating that puppet, a turn of the head, a movement of the hands. These are the movements that the animator puts into it as though he were that little character.
Singing in the rain.
Ivor was clearly exceptionally talented because he moved from one idea to another and produced different things, and Paddington was lovely and always new looks, new combinations of still pictures and moving objects and colour and black and white, and he was always as far as I could see, very experimental.
And here comes Madame Chollet. She's picking the daffodils.
Ivor animated the Wombles for the children of the 70s before going on to create Postman Pat.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat.
He's been able to retire comfortably on the fruits of his labour, but pays tribute to the series that started him off all those years ago.
Magic Roundabout to me has been, it was a little bit like running a race, and it was the starting block. But it was an influential starting block in the sense that it put the whole thing in perspective, and you could from there on pick up another idea and see value in it or not, because you'd had already a lot of experience with this. And for me, it was very influential, I must say.
Did you like that? Said Mr. Rusty. It brought tears to my eyes, said Zebedee.
The BBC showed the Magic Roundabout throughout the 1970s, although production had stopped in France in the late 60s. Serge Dano's next venture had attempted to emulate the success of Le Ménage Enchanté.
We got to know that Serge Dano was doing a sequel, which was actually called Poustoff. Pouce in French means thumb, which is like Tom Thumb. So all the little characters in that were tiny little men. And Serge Dano was very, very anxious to tie in and make another killing as he had with Magic Roundabout, because it was much more successful in England than it had been in France.
But the little men did not catch on, and Poustoffs never made it to Britain.
I've got a funny little note which Phillida found in Eric's papers, which says £500 for not doing Poustoff in his diary.
Here you go. Mikey.
Dano then returned to what he knew best and brought the Magic Roundabout characters out of retirement to star in a full-length feature film called Pollux et le Chat Bleu, or Dougal and the Blue Cat. Once again, Eric Thompson rewrote and revoiced the script. The film was released in 1972, and the story, as Thompson tells it, is of a mysterious stranger of evil intent who tries to take over the garden.
She got a bit closer, and she saw a cat. Oh, how beautiful. Call me Buxton.
We used to name animals, and Buxton was a cousin of mine. He was actually called Buxton. that odd? Because it's a place, isn't it? He was a musician, and Buxton obviously intrigued. The fact that he was named Buxton intrigued Thompson, so the blue cat became Buxton.
Buxton!
Thompson gave Buxton the baddie an unsettling Yorkshire drawl.
Aye, that's the name, lad. Buxton. Pleased to, how are you? Very well, Tar.
It's maybe just the slowness of it, the fact that, I mean, you could have had a sort of George Sanders person, I suppose, but it's just you can draw out those vowels, can't you? Ha ha ha.
The plot had Buxton in thrall to the disembodied voice of the Blue Queen, who wanted to take over the magic garden.
Blue is beautiful. Blue is best. I'm blue. I'm beautiful. I'm best.
This was the only time Thompson ever brought in another person to play a part, but a particular voice was needed, and who else could carry it off but Carry On star Fenella Fielding.
Sir Buxton.
I remember that it was very frightening and that I had to sort of roar a bit.
Out of my sight before I lose my temper. And when I lose my temper, there's trouble, 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 trouble.
All the things children like best, they watch from behind the sofa, don't they? I know that Doctor Who, practically everybody I know watched it from behind the sofa. So, well, I'm one of that band then, that terrified children out of their wits.
Parents taking their children to this film expecting the usual charming nonsense were in for a shock. In making this feature film, Dano had pushed back the boundaries of his magic garden to explore a darker world altogether.
I think Dougal and the Blue Cat raises an interesting question. It's a dilemma. Can you take something that works in a particular format and expand it into something in a different format? Can you take something that is essentially a 10-minute item and make it run for getting on for 80 minutes? Does it work? And I think it's a challenge in Dougal and the Blue Cat. I think it's one that Eric Thompson rose to wonderfully, because there's some extraordinarily bizarre things in the film that really don't add up, and somehow he makes it work. But it is questionable whether extended to that form, it really comes off.
Terrifying.
The film did not do that well at the box office, but remains an intriguing example of Dano's work.
Out of this world. Look, I'm not easily frightened, but this... Caw.
A friend of mine told me that every time the cat cried, his dog used to howl. Now, I think that is quelque chose, don't you? I think that really means a lot, because dogs, say what you like about them, but they're terribly sincere.
You can say that again, said Dougal.
In 1976, Eric Thompson wrote the last scripts for the BBC television versions of The Magic Roundabout. His producer thanked him for creating what she called a classic.
You know, there are very few personalities from France that are well known in Britain. In all modesty, I think I can claim that I am one. Charles Aznavour, the second Frenchman, he has a tiny following. But our popularity is nothing compared to the name I am about to introduce. He is adored by adults and children alike, and I am proud to say he comes from France. In my country, he is known as Pollux. Over here, he's Dougal. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen, and we have with us tonight one man very responsible for the Magic Roundabout in both languages. I'm not going to ask you which is the best, because I'm sitting next to him. He is famous as the voices of the English language version, anyway. Mr. Eric Thompson. Eric, it's very nice to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
And I don't know which language I should speak now, French or English?
Well, if you spoke French, you wouldn't get very far because you'd be on your own. Because I don't speak it.
Oh, no. So it's not you
No.
trying... Because, you know, it just happens that in on the screen just now, in the French version, Pollux or Dougal, which, you know, name changes, actually has a very heavy English accent speaking French.
Well, that's the joke, you see. Well, that's one of the main jokes in France, and that's why, really, it doesn't translate. You can't just translate it. Although that was very funny. You noticed it was rather loud and very sort of brash. And one of the main jokes is that this dog speaks French with a very, very bad English accent. And if I was to speak French to you, of course, it would sound much the same. Je vous assure, mon cher Monsieur Distel, si j'essaie de parler votre langue dans Paris, tout le monde, ils laugh like drains.
Yeah, they would laugh, but they would understand at least, which is quite nice.
3 years after this appearance, Eric Thompson died of a heart attack at the age of 52.
I think he had a lovely voice. Vocally, he was entrancing and could use it very well. It's the voice, I think, that's so powerful. I think you would find that with death, that the voice is missed greatly.
This morning I don't know whether I'm coming or going. You're going, old speedy mate, said Brian. I've got a million things to do and I've not had time to put a comb through my hair yet. Yes, looks like it, said Brian. Bit shaggier than usual, if that's possible. What? Choose your words, snail. It's true, you could do with having your barnet trimmed. What a vulgar expression. Yeah, well, I'm a vulgar snail.
Eric Thompson was, always will be, the Magic Roundabout. It was a work of genius, and I don't use that lightly, because he created the product that we consumed.
I used to get fan letters from the oddest little clubs. I still get I got the most delightful letter from, what do they call themselves, Song Cycle, and it's 6 guys who sing a cappella on bikes. Don't ask me where. But they rang me, no, they got in touch with me to see if I had the rights to Florence's song. Florence's song, yes. Florence, it's a lovely morning.
Florence, shall you work this morning? Florence, if you don't this morning, you will never do it, dear.
It's lovely. And Thompson was a choir boy, you see, so he was a singer. And they wanted to get the rights for that because they were going to do an a cappella. This is now. So it's a huge, long history behind it.
Now, you've seen the television programme, you've read the book, you may even have bought the duvet cover. Well, now you can see the likes of Zebedee, Dougal and Florence treading the boards in the world stage premiere of the cult children's series The Magic Roundabout.
Nostalgia kicked in for the baby boom generation around the 1980s, and the Magic Roundabout was recycled and sold to us all over again.
Time for bed.
By the end of the 90s, Magic Mania looked as if it might be coming to an end, when Jo Brand chose it as one of the things she would most like to consign to oblivion.
It's the sort of programme that makes you want to watch the news when you're 5, which is odd, really.
Did you have any idea at all what was going on in Magic Roundabout?
No, but I think it's probably responsible for a lot of crime, because I think that it wound my generation up so much that we had to go out and commit crime.
Also, you got the chance of making a Dougal, didn't you? Did you ever make a Dougal? Very, very simple. There's his black nose. There we go. That seems to... Dougal moved in a very strange way. He used to move like that, didn't he?
Sure.
He'd like he'd been in a threshing machine, actually. K9 moved more realistically than Dougal. And here's Zebedee. You know, that's some Zebedee bubble bath. Oh, bollocks! Absolutely not. I think they're definitely going to room 101. And with you, Des? There's absolutely... There's no right of appeal, I'm afraid. Think about the poor, innocent black marker pen that's going in with them. Right, off you go.
If you were one of those who booed, you may be cheered by the end of this story. Florence and Dougal and everyone else in the garden are being brought back to life on the big screen in a new Anglo-French collaboration for a new generation of fans.
I think part of the challenge is to make this thing as good as their parents remembered it. And if their parents can take their children to see a film that, you know, they say this is going to be good, and the kids think, ooh, actually this is pretty good, you know, that's going to be a kind of nice bonding between the parents and the kids.
In a return to the original French version, each character will have its own voice. Kylie Minogue is to play Florence, and Robbie Williams is Dougal.
I can't wait to see it. I think that why not, and to see it's done in computer graphics. Computer graphics is working very well at the present moment.
Will they be as good as Eric? Eric did it all. Well, we'll see, we'll see. They sound lovely.
Magic is part of the way you are. Magic is what you do. If I can ride on a falling star, so I believe can you. Magic is not just to close your eyes, hoping that that will do. Nothing will come if you close your eyes. You have to make it true. If you will open your eyes and say, all that I see is true, then you'll have come a long, long way. Magic can be yours too.